Welcome back to another Trade Alts technical analysis, and in this video we're going to take a look at Kusama, see where it's been, where we think it might be headed, and we'll try to come up with some important levels to keep an eye on going forward. Let's get to the charts. All right, so we have Kusama on the daily time frame here, and if you zoom out, you can see this thing has been absolutely on a tear, no signs of slowing down. I actually was in this one. I bought this one last year, when DeFi was going crazy, and I think I got into Kusama. It was like in the $6 to $9 range. You can see price is obviously really far away from where that entry was, and I'm very happy about that. But part of the reason why I wanted to take a look at this chart tonight is because for that fact, I own Kusama, and I want to make sure that I'm keeping an eye on my bag and I'm, managing it effectively. So that's part of the reason for this particular video tonight, but it's also a really good case study. But, again, if you look back, we've come from, single digits all the way up to $228 currently right now. And so I just want to kind of talk about how we got there and kind of like where do we think we're headed, and try to come up with some current levels that might be helpful for trading purposes. So, first of all, the macro value areas that you see here on the bottom of my chart, they're not very relevant at the point because price is so far away from them. So I'm not going to bother talking about them, but in a future video, I will go over how I actually pull these levels. It's really simple. But kind of the first level that I want to look at is this key level here at $74, $74.88. And I actually had that on my chart for quite a while. And how I got this level was really simple. So when we were back here, right, we were consolidating, and we had this really big run up. So that was our first initial pump before we had our retracement down. So naturally, when I see these types of moves happen, so again, over here, you got kind of your consolidation. You see price starts to ramp up before you get your really big move up. Get your impulse up, then you get your retracement. This is a really good area to take a fib extension pull and see what levels that might come above it. If you're, so where I took my pull, it's really simple. It was at the bottom right here of this consolidation before price started ramping up. So I used this as a fixed point here, and then the very top of the impulse move, and then the bottom of the retracement. So as you can see, right, so you have your low, your high, and then your low. So this is a really good pull that ended up actually working out really nicely. So you can see right here, this one. So this is your one-to-one fib extension pull from this point to this point to this point. So your one-to-one extension is usually a really good area to keep an eye on for, as far as price. When price comes up to that level, typically it likes to act as resistance. It's a really good area if you're in a long trade, sometimes to take profit, or that's definitely an area you want to keep your eyes on. But you can see, so that's why I marked off this level here with this purple line. I just put a line right here and wrote key level because it's something that I wanted to keep an eye on. Now you can see when price came up to that, there we go. So when price came up to that, what was the resistance? Well, it was your one-to-one right here at 74.88. You can see price moved up to it. Resistance, 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 resistance. I mean, this was resistance for, a week and a half or so before, whoops, sorry. There we go. So this was resistance here. Then here you get your move out and above resistance before you come back and do a perfect back test right here. So basically what was resistance now becomes support, and price is able to move higher, which it did. So you can see we're all the way up here now. So this was a really important level for me to keep an eye on. And then naturally, after your 1-to-1 extension, the levels that I really keep an eye on are your 1618. So your 1618 sitting right here, this blue level, right? If you go across to the screen, so if I just put a horizontal line in here, you can see is the same story, right? So price came up to your 1618, grinded it out, resistance, 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 boom. Then it breaks through and you get your back test. So you get your perfect back tests here before you get this really big impulsive move up. And also your 2618 here, it's kind of the same thing, right? So if I put another line there, so where did you find resistance on this impulsive move up? Well, you found a bit of resistance here at your 2618. So it was resistance, 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 and you got your impulse out of it. And now you could argue that your 3618 also is pretty relevant for this area. But anyway, so this is how I use fib pools. They're very helpful, and you can see like in this particular instance, they actually got the future resistances lined up very well. So it worked out pretty nicely. So I'm going to delete these lines. So that's kind of where we've been, where we come from. And when price was at this area here, this is how I was able to forecast out where I thought future resistances could be. So it's very helpful when you're trading. So now we kind of fast forward to where we are, right? And you can see, so the key level that I have marked off here is actually a daily level, but this is the very obvious resistance right now. So until price reclaims this level, and what I mean by that is you want to see price get above and stay above. So you don't want to see this wick, and these are daily candles. So ideally, a daily close above this key level would likely be good for continuation higher. Or if I went down to a lower time frame, yeah, you could even use a 4-hour close. So, if a 4-hour candle close above this key level, I think it's pretty good odds that we probably get another impulsive move up. So Kusama's been really strong. It's been one that, like I said, I've been in for a long time. I don't really have any plans of selling. So not financial advice, obviously. I'm just talking about kind of my situation. But I'm obviously very interested in what's going on. So until then, though, you can see, so until this key level is broken and closed above and held, what do we think is likely to happen until that happens? So right now, I kind of have a couple of things that I'm looking at. So if I go here to, there we go. So I kind of like this better on an hourly. I think it's a little easier to see. So this is a channel that I had, once I started, you basically got your high, your low, your high up here, your low. So this channel's been really respected. It reminds me a lot of Ethereum. If you watch one of my previous videos, I think I did a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, something like that. Ethereum was in a really similar situation. It was like the same type of channel here. And, we lost it actually today. So if we zoom in, on when Bitcoin dumped earlier, Kusama lost this channel. And you can see that it kind of held as resistance for a few hours before price was able to break back in, and we're right back into the channel. So, as far as this goes, do I consider this pattern or like this channel still valid? Absolutely, 100% I do. And, as long as we are closing, as long as we're remaining within this channel, there's no reason why we can't continue higher. And, we could maybe even stay in this channel. But I mean, we could just continue to kind of bounce like this, and that would be totally fine with me. But another formation that kind of is staring me in the face right now is I would say it's kind of like, I guess you had a better ascending triangle without this though. So that's the only thing. Like if I were to kind of look at this, that's kind of how I would have drawn that earlier. But obviously that kind of broke down. That's kind of, I don't know how much I would put any stock into that or anything, but that was something that I was looking at earlier today. Was that possible ascending triangle formation that usually resolves bullishly. but we'll kind of have to see how this plays out. I think more importantly for me is still this channel. So if price does break above this channel, you know, I would still be looking at the top of the channel as possible resistance until, you know, that, you know, is obviously broken. So that's to the upside. So that's kind of like what I'm going to be keeping an eye on. So one thing I like to do is turn my pivots on. So these are your monthly pivots. So if I go on my weekly, which, you know, we're actually getting a new set of weekly pivots after daily close tomorrow. Well, technically weekly close, but same thing. And you can see, I really like how this lines up. So your R3 weekly pivot, it lines up almost perfectly with this level that I have marked off here. So it's just more confluence to me. It shows how important this level really is. And once we're able to reclaim that level, if it happens, then I would expect price to naturally continue higher. And if you look where this R4 pivot is, you know, and it runs into the top of this channel here, you know, that's possible. Like that's kind of an area of interest that I would look at. But so we kind of have a plan of, you know, what we would be looking for to the upside. So again, if price was able to kind of break this, you got your 4-hour close above, you know, honestly, maybe even an hourly close. That might be a little bit too low time frame for me, but possibly an hourly close might even work. But let's say that you got price moved up above, you got a back test, and then you kind of started working your way up. Like this is something that I would consider, like, you know, like this is kind of like what I would be looking at as far as Kusama goes. But and just because, you know, we've spent some time kind of consolidating around here, so if we did break above this level, I would expect it to be, you know, very similar to the rest of the previous. You know, you can see this is kind of similar, right? We were kind of grinding up, and then before you got your impulse, I would think another impulse out of here wouldn't be asking too much. Now to the downside, and this is where it kind of gets. This is where, you know, it gets a little harder, and I'm going to hide this channel. But this is where it gets a little bit harder about trying to figure out where you think price could go. So I like to go on higher time frames first and see kind of what's going on. So something that stands out to me that I would do right away. Well, let me actually switch it up. Let me switch it up. I want to draw something out for you. Use an hourly. So the first thing that I really see, I'm going to use my fixed range tool. And I'm really interested in this range that we're in. So, you know, and here's another thing, and this is another line of confluence here. So it's going to get a little bit messy. But right about here is your value area high of this range, this consolidation right here. So that's a very big resistance at the moment. Then you have your point of control right here. Your value area low of the range right here. So we delete this to clean it up a little bit. But what do you notice? So again, value area high of the range with your weekly R3 pivot. And again, the key level, like this is the big resistance zone. So if you just drew a little, not to make it even messier, but this zone right here is very, very strong resistance at this point. So you have a lot of confluence in this area. And until this is broken, and, you know, I'd like to see a back test to prove that it's now support, right? But until this level is broken, I don't look for any further upside. I'm more focused in trading, you know, if I was trading this actively, I'd be more focused on trading this range until it breaks either to the upside or to the downside. But right now, so we're kind of just going, you know, it's kind of, you're still kind of grinding a little higher, but it's definitely more sideways price action than it's been. So you're below the point of control, right? And you can see earlier today, so this is when Bitcoin kind of had that couple $1,000 dump that it had. I wouldn't really call it a dump, but it, you know, it dropped a few $1,000s kind of quickly. And so Kusama was up here, and where did you bounce from? Perfectly right off your value area low of the range. So this is your support. So this is the first level of support that I would look at, obviously to the downside. So I would expect the value area low to hold up as support. If this level fails though, then that's kind of the next area that I want to look at to see where could it go. So I'm going to go to a little higher time frame, a lot higher actually, a daily. But again, you can kind of see, and like one thing that I do want to say again, like where price currently sits, you haven't lost the value area low yet. So it's not like I'm not looking for price to come down here. The only reason that I'm doing this is to have my levels ready ahead of time in case price actually loses value area low. Then you can look for your levels down here to possibly come into play. But it's to like, as price currently sits, like I'm not worried about what's could possibly happen down here yet, because I'm more worried about this particular range. So it's just like this area, right? And I'll actually draw it out. So it's just like this area. You see, like that was a couple of weeks of just sideways price action, right? There's nothing that says we can't do that here. Like we very well could just do this before price continues higher or whatever it is. I don't know why my lines look so squiggly like that, but you know, that's why, like for me, I'm a level to level trader. I don't worry about what's going on down here so much. I don't worry about too much what's going on, you know, above like where this current kind of smaller range is. But I do like to know where those levels are, just so I'm prepared in case, like, you know, for when the range actually breaks. So again, we could just continue to go sideways for a couple of weeks even in this range. Who knows? Really don't know. But so we talked about the upside, kind of gave you, so these are your key levels within this small range that we're in right now. So if we lose value area low, then where do we possibly go? One of the first things I like to do is, so I go back in time, and I already circled this area of kind of consolidation that we had here, right? So consolidation just basically means price went sideways in a really small range until it figured out what it wanted to do. And in this case, price went sideways, and then we started to move up and out of this consolidation zone, okay? So I'm going to take a Fibonacci pull or Fibonacci retracement from this point up to the very high. And again, the reason why I'm picking this particular candle is because it's the end of this consolidation before price got this impulsive move up, right? So you're consolidating here, and then here is when we got your move up. So that's why I'm picking this as a starting point, and then assuming this is the high, right? So now we're kind of looking for a scenario in case price does break value area low and starts to break down. Now I want to find some levels down here that are of interest. So this fib pull for me would be my first place to look at. So I have my pivots in front of me, I have my fib pull in front of me, and I have, you know, I have the levels that I have so far marked out on the chart that I think are important. So a few things that I see right off the bat is, I mean, you technically could put it here, but I would actually put it right here because it's not tapped yet. So you have a daily level, right? So let me actually undo that. So you have okay, yeah. So you have a daily level that sits perfectly right on your 618, which is it's a very critical, it's a really important level when you're dealing with Fibonacci. So that right away gets me thinking, because this is already an area where I would be very interested in taking a trade, not financial advice. And then next, so do I have any other levels? Well, I guess I have another one right here. I don't want to cloud up the chart too much. So those are probably the only two real ones that I see that are kind of in this zone that we're looking at. So what I also like to do is I like to draw out the golden pocket for you to see. That way you can see visually where it is and what I'm talking about. And my golden pockets are always yellow, just like that. So this area So what do you have here? So first off, you have your 618 and your 66. Some people use 65, and like I'll get into that in a different video. But for my golden pocket, I like the 618 and the 66. And then you have your daily level here, which is right on your 66. You have a weekly pivot right here, but again, we're getting new pivots. We're getting new weekly pivots tomorrow, so I'm not really regarding this too much. And then if you watch any of my previous videos, you know that I'm a very big fan of Ichimoku. So then I turn on my Ichimoku. So now it's getting a little bit messy, and I apologize. But you can see right away. So first off, just going back, you can see how well the Tenkan, which is this blue line, okay, has caught price all the way from back here. It has literally held price up this entire run up. And here you got a wick down to test your Kijun here, which is, again, phenomenal buy. But if history is any indication, right? So if this is how this asset likes to trade, if you get another opportunity to buy the Tenkan up here, considering how many times, right? You can see here, here, here. I mean, you can see along this blue line how many times it has held as support. Prices come down and, you know, and held these levels and then continued higher. So knowing that this is kind of how Kusama trades, if you get a chance to buy the Tenkan again, like, it could be a decent, you know, again, it's not financial advice, but it could be like, if history is any indication, could be another really good opportunity. And as far as, especially on a higher time frame like the daily, when it comes to Ichimoku, your Kijun is always an area where you're interested in bidding. Like, especially in this type of scenario where price is pretty far away, the yellow Kijun here is basically its equilibrium. So this would be a mean reversion, or a reversion to mean, if you get price to come back and test this yellow line here. So that means price, or the asset, would be in equilibrium, which is where you kind of want it to be, right? So knowing that, we have your Tenkan that's sitting up here, and it's currently around 170 bucks. And so this is definitely a level of interest for me. And then you have your Kijun that's sitting, you know, and as time progresses, so you can see these dots right here. So that's my forecaster. So that kind of shows you where the line is likely to head over the next, you know, each dot is a day, since we're on the daily time frame. Same with the Kijun here, the yellow line. So the dots, it kind of shows you that over the next, you know, 3 to 4 days, you can expect the Kijun to work its way up into the golden pocket, right around where your daily level is. So for me, wow, there must be some stuff going on with Bitcoin right now. That's just my VWAP alert, nothing major, but so these levels is kind of where I would be looking at initially. So your 382 Fibonacci is a good, you know, when there's a strong trend, a lot of times your 382 level will be really strong resistance. So that's sitting at 191. You know, that's not enough on its own for me. Then you have your 0.5 fib, which is basically a 50% retracement from your low where I took the fib pool to the high. So this is your 50% mark. Your Kijun, I'm sorry, your Tenkan sitting right here. So that could be a nice area to bounce. And then tomorrow, not to get too far ahead, but again, I said that we're getting new weekly pivots tomorrow. That would be interesting to see where they line up. So I would actually look at this again tomorrow to see if it lines up with any of my other levels. And then you have, so again, your Kijun down here sitting in your, you know, about to sit in your golden pocket right on your daily level. So this level for me, and I'll kind of just draw a little zone. This green box area, so I mean, it's really your yellow box here. So not to confuse you, but this I always map this out just so I know where my golden pockets are. But it's really, since the Kijun's all the way down here right now, this green box right here would be very interesting to me if price was to work its way down. So let's say Bitcoin, you know, maybe Bitcoin drops a couple $1,000s. Kusama loses this key level, the value area low, maybe it, you know, who knows. but I would definitely be interested if I got an opportunity around this area. So not financial advice. So I'll leave that here. But that's basically, and then you can look on, so also I like to turn my EMAs on. So I'm actually, this is where it gets a little bit messy and I apologize, but I turn my EMAs on to see, do they line up with any other levels, right? And you can see here, so let me turn off Ichimoku for a second. That way it clears it up a little bit. So the 21 EMA has been a phenomenal, right? A phenomenal support almost this entire run up. And then back here, your 55 EMA, you had some nice support down here, but most of the time it's been your 21, which by the way, like 21 EMA means 21 periods, right? 21 candles. So it's very similar to Ichimoku with my settings, because Ichimoku, if I turn it back on, the blue Tenkan here goes back 20 periods. So 20 periods versus 21 for the EMA, it's very similar, which is why you see like it kind of offers the same, it's very similar in that aspect. But you have your 0.5 fib here. Not only do you have your daily Tenkan, but also your 21. So the 21 that has been phenomenal support this entire way up, your 21 EMA sitting right here too. So this is also, and I'll kind of map this out, like this also is a nice little zone of potential support if price does come down here. And honestly, Kusama's been so strong, I would be almost a little hesitant to, like, I feel like if I was to bid this area, that I wouldn't be too sure about it getting filled just because of how strong Kusama has been this entire run up. So let me delete this one. And let me turn this off. But that is, in a nutshell, that is kind of how I come up with my levels of interest on both sides, right? So higher up, I have my channel, I have my pivots that I look for, because there's no, Kusama's in price discovery, right? It's never been this high before. So there's no previous, there's no previous price action to look at. Once you break this new high, it's going to be another all-time high. And you only really have a few things to go off of, right? But if price breaks down, you lose value area low here, then now we've come up with some levels that we can really keep an eye on to see what happens. And again, if price does come down to my box down here, I would be very interested to be in front of the computer at that time, because I would probably be trading this. So again, not financial advice, not trying to tell anybody what to do. This is purely for educational purposes only, but this is how I come up with my levels. So just to wrap things up again real quick, I know this is kind of like an intense, like this is, we're not going over any other charts, but let me turn my pivots off. So just to wrap things up with Kusama, if we break this, break this resistance up here, you have your value area high, the key level that I drew, you have your pivot that's up here. To me, this is very, very big resistance at the moment. If price is able to reclaim this, I would say, a 4-hour close, preferably a daily close would definitely do it for me. But I would look to, I would look for Kusama to continue higher. Likely, I would say you probably get a pretty nice move off of that if those criteria were to be met. Now, what do I think is likely to happen? I don't see any real crazy reasons why we couldn't just continue to keep ranging here. So like you've seen, price has kind of done this already. Like we could very well just continue to do this for another few days. Wouldn't surprise me at all. And like, honestly, if I were to be trading this range right now, like this is how I would be looking to trade this. I would be looking for longs here, value area low, and trying to run it up to, really, your point of control is usually a really good first take profit, but your value area high would be kind of your target. And then you would kind of be hoping that, that's the point at which where price broke. But if not, then you would be taking profit, or the rest of your profit off. But so this range is really what I would be continuing to look at. Now, obviously, we went over the scenario if the value area low is lost. And I mean, not, you know, a wick is fine, but if you see price really, you know, if price were to come down here, do this, you know, kind of like back test this and start grinding its way down, that would be a red flag to me. And I would be looking at my levels that we came up with and seeing what happens. You know, does it react at certain areas? How does the reaction look? And this is all stuff that you want to be looking at in real time. But again, if price does come down to this region that we came up with together here on this video, I would be pretty interested to, you know, take a look at it. Hopefully I'd be in front of the computer when that happens. But those are, you know, so we talked about where Kusama came from, hell of a move. Talked about potential upside, what I would look at for continuation higher. If we broke this level, the value area low, what levels below that I would be looking towards. So hopefully that helped you out a little bit. Maybe you learned something. If you did, I really appreciate a thumbs up. This is a brand new channel. And if you like my content, definitely leave me a comment. Tell me what you thought about it. If there's anything else that you maybe would have wanted to see. But again, some of the tools that I went over, so the Fibonacci retracement, the Fibonacci extensions, all of that stuff I will be covering in future videos. I'll probably do dedicated videos just to show you how I use those tools, what they're for, and so on and so forth. But anyway, again, if you appreciated the video, if you could leave a like, I'd appreciate that. Leave me a comment, but have a good one.